Hello, 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 beautiful souls. How are you guys doing today on this amazing Tuesday? Hope it is the one that really helps you to start shining your light if you have been dimming it, or if you have starting to realize that your light was dimmed and now you're ready to shine it. Yana Kasperczak, your spiritual awakening core energy coach. And my soul's purpose is to help you break free from the mental prison that you find yourself in, so you can live the life that you are excited to live. So you can wake up every single day wanting to be waking up, and stop snoozing that alarm clock that is trying to get you to help start the day. So you can become your own alarm clock one of these days and wake up way before your alarm, because you're too freaking excited for the day and not excited to be sleeping through the day and night. So today on Tuesdays, I do story time with Yana, with myself, Yana Kasperczak, where I bring you a story, and more often than not, it's actually a story of many, many, many women, such as the story for today. So the topic that I have for today is what happens when you stop shining your own light. I want to ask it in the question of each and every one of you. What happens, or what has happened in your life, in your own internal life, in your body, mind, soul, and spirit, and outwardly as well? What happens when you dim your light, when you had dimmed your light in the past, for whatever reason you dimmed your light? At that time, the reason might have been legitimate. It might have been, more often than not, actually does come from wanting to be a good girl, or having to be a good girl, so that way you don't get hurt. So you put everybody else's needs and wants first, and make sure that everybody else around you is happy. And sometimes it comes at the cost of yourself, or the cost of your own personal needs and desires and wants, at the cost of time, of your own time being given to everybody else and not yourself. So I do want to hear from you, ladies and gentlemen, since this is on my public page. Feel free to share what has happened when you dimmed your light, or what continues to happen when you do dim your light. Hi Rebecca, how are you doing, beautiful? Rebecca says, I felt excited today because of the circle. I'm so glad. And that was a really, really amazing circle time today, which actually did inspire this topic. Not in the way that we were communicating during the sacred circle, because that's the sacredness of the sacred circle, but in the way of what happens to each and every one of us when we dim our light for somebody else, for something else. Because in our minds we have the story of, if I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. When sometimes we even make excuses for others' actions and behaviors to normalize what has happened to us in our life, to make it okay. But little by little, that stuff, and this is now we're getting into what happens when we dim our light. First of all, we start to lose a sense of ourselves. We forget who we are, because who we start to become is an image and expectation of everybody else around us. We mold ourselves to be this perfect version of a mother, of a wife, of a housemaker, of employee, or of a boss, or whatever roles we're playing in our life. We all play a role. We all have more than one role that we play. Even when you're bringing your kids from home to an event, their extracurricular activities, for example, you're playing a role. You're being a taxi driver. You got to be a good taxi driver. If you're not, there's the consequences. And then we have people that come into our life that are chirping in our ears, telling us what is expected of us in order for us to be the good girl that we're supposed to be the good boy that we're supposed to be. And that shit does not feel good. Because by these birds chirping in our ears, they are shaking the very foundation that we're trying to build for ourselves. The foundation of what makes us us. And by playing these roles, we forgot that we were all given one role that we were meant to play from birth to death, from beginning to the end, from the very first breath to the very last breath. And that one and only role is to be you, to be the most authentic you that you can be, and learn how to not give a flying rat's ass about all these other people and their journeys and their stories and their expectations of themselves, which they project onto you. So when people come and tell us, and I hear this one, I've heard this one myself, and I've experienced it myself, and through coaching, I hear this of every woman that I work with, is that these expectations that come in a very nice and loving way, but when we start to dig deep, we see that they're not really nice. These comments that are coming from a place of love, but they're not. Such as, oh, you look so great. You lost so much weight. I missed you looking this way. And I see you have so much fire and you're so much more energetic. And it feels great to hear those things. But if we really, some of us do spend time thinking about these things, because it starts to make us feel bad. Because number one, especially for women who have had children, where our body is no longer ours, and we struggled mentally with a different body image, to now be hearing this positive comment. But these positive comments actually it's like a double-edged sword. It has a negative effect on us, because even though it feels great in the moment, it is bringing us back to that old version of ourselves, to where we were beating ourselves up and punishing ourselves, where we really did dim our light because we weren't in our body. We weren't the best version of ourselves, where we felt like a failure because we couldn't keep this body, having gone through pregnancy. Because, you know, especially with social media, thank you, social media, you've been an amazing source of inspiration for many women, but at the same time, social media have been a torture device for so many women as well, where we see these perfect lives of other women who have children, and then they look perfect, as they looked even better than they did before they had a child. Now, this is where social media can do a lot more damage than good. Debbie says, I feel empty or depressed when our light is dimmed. And this is actually perfect when it comes to the social media and what effect it has on our own light. With this example of, you see this one mother who has had her children, and now she is living a perfect life and she looks better than she did before. I have learned to ask, and I'm hoping this is going to help you as well. Write these questions down to help yourself to check the reality of the reality. How true is it really that she's living a perfect life? when you ask that question, you will quickly remember that it's absolutely not true. Especially those of you who have children, you know, we can put this perfect image out there in the world that our life is perfect, that we got our shit, that we figured out our shit, we got our shit together, and that everything is perfect and peachy. But the reality is not that. Those who take so much time and effort to put this image up front for everyone to see that their life is perfect often are not living a perfect life, because they're trying to figure out, they're trying to live that life through this image, through this version of themselves. It really is fake it until you make it. And how many of those women end up making it as they're faking it? Yes, they do learn a lot as they're faking it, but we can only fake something for so long until we can no longer fake it, until we are forced to face the reality, and we go into that feeling of emptiness and depression, until we are forced to face the reality. And until we face the reality and have that reality check, we're not going to be able to move forward. It is no different than an addict. If we really, really, really go down into the roots of addictions and putting this faking till I make it kind of a front for everyone to see that everything is perfect, everything is peachy, that at the roots, the pain is the same. And until an addict admits and owns that they're an addict and decides that today is the day that I'm going to do whatever it takes to work on those roots that has brought me to here, and the roots is all of the stuff that has been suppressed, put away, and not dealt with over the lifetime. Dealing with the shame, the embarrassment, the grief, the despair, the loss, all of the not so good feelings and emotions that none of us honestly want to deal with. We all want to feel great. Nobody wants to feel bad. But that is not the reality. The reality is we are humans. Humans are flawed, and that is what makes us perfect. And I will share one of the 33 principles through the coach training, through IPEC coach training that I went through, that we at IPEC live by. And each and every principle of the 33 of them is incredibly grounding and reminding. But in order for us to live the life that we want to live, we need to really come into a place of acceptance that we are flawed, and that is perfection itself, that we are each unique and different, and we need to stop comparing ourselves to other people, especially in a way that makes us feel bad and horrible, where we're beating ourselves up. We need to own our shit. We need to have these reality checks, to sit down with ourselves and see where our life is right now and own that, not to do it in the way of punishing ourselves. And that's why I recommend working with someone who can help you to do that in a positive way, because we ourselves, more of us than not, don't have the tools to do that on our own. And this is the reality check as well. And then to also know or recognize, where do you want to go with your life, and see how you can close the gap between where you are and where you want and trying to go. Because you can't get to where you want to get to without having a step-by-step plan to help you get there. You can't. It's like walking in the dark and expecting to open a door in the dark. Yes, you might find a door in the dark, you might open it, but do you know where that door opens to? No. But when you are doing the work on yourself with someone who helps you and guides you through this dark, it will really help you to find the door that you are actually wanting to find, or at least the one that next to it, that when you walk through this door, you will recognize that there's certain things that you wanted from your life, and only through experience can you really understand that those are not the things that you want, that you then become much more clear on what you do want, and then you close that door or you leave it a little bit open and you go to the next one. So I'll share a couple of, I'll share one of the 33 principles on here with you to help you start shining your light much more brightly, and a couple of other things that I have on here that will help you to see what happens when you do dim your light, and the darkness of it, and of course the light. So without further ado, let's go into this principle. This principle is each one of us is a perfect, unique energy force. Remembering our true state is perfect, regardless of what we think, say, or do, releases self-condemnation and frees us up to really live. Great coaches love themselves and their clients unconditionally. We are never afraid to let our light shine, as we know that this is a beacon for others to embrace. Remember, the definition of perfection is unique unto itself. Relax, you're already perfect. And one of the quotes in here, what you are shouts so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. What comes up for you when you hear this quote? I want to understand a little bit of how your mind operates and your level of consciousness as well when it comes to yourself and your existence and the world as well. What you are shouts so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. This is from Emerson. So I'd love to hear what comes up for you. Rebecca says, love your shirt. Thank you. Do I have a link? For the shirt, I think this was from AliExpress. Yeah, this was from AliExpress. So I'm not sure if I can find a link for you and send it to you, because I know you like these awesome shirts as well. Okay, so now there's another story that I had quickly written to help each and every one of you to see yourself and how all of us are connected and have been on this journey. And this journey is of many women, but I will say it in the way of one woman. Once upon a time, there was a woman who had spent years molding herself into the perfect good girl. She dimmed her light, fearing the judgment of others. Yet, deep within, a fire yearned to burn brightly. As she embraced her spiritual awakening, she decided to break free from the mold that had confined her. The moment she stopped suppressing her light, her world transformed. Authenticity radiated from her, touching the hearts of those around her. Her relationships deepened, and a sense of liberation washed over her. She discovered a passion for healing and helping others on their journeys. No longer bound by societal expectations, she became a beacon of inspiration for women navigating the same path. In letting her light shine, she not only transformed her own life, but ignited a spark of courage in others. Her story is a testament to the magic that unfolds when a woman on her spiritual awakening and healing journey dares to break free from the constraints of being a good girl and embraces her true, radiant self. How many of you can relate or resonate to this story? How many of you have been or are on this journey of breaking free from these shackles of having to be a good girl all the time, where you're even scared to ask for help from people? You're scared to show up as yourself. You're scared to speak your truth. You're scared to say what's upsetting you, what's bothering you. You're scared to speak up. You're scared to ask for what you want and need. However little or big it is, inside it feels like it's impossible. How many of you could relate to this woman who has been breaking through this mold of being a good girl, who has become fed up of being someone for everyone and forgetting who she is at her core? That I can definitely relate to. And I feel like there's a lot of you who can as well. Some of you might feel scared to admit to it or uncomfortable. But as long as you start to admit that within yourself and start owning this reality that I'm a good girl and I'm no longer going to be that good girl. I want to be a good girl, but in my own way, in the way that is me and not in the way that the world expects me to be. Debbie said actions are better than words. 100%. My favorite phrase is that actions speak louder than words. I've heard so many times people apologize for something, and our kids are a perfect example. That when our kids apologize for something and yet they continue to do the same thing over and over again, because really this is where the good girl comes through or the good boy comes through, that they feel like they have to apologize for something to make you feel better, but they don't actually mean it. So apologizing for things that we don't actually want to apologize for is not the way that we're meant to live. So if you don't feel sorry, don't apologize for that. And if you do feel sorry, apologize, but show it through your actions and your behaviors that you really do mean that you are sorry. And if you can't follow up with the actions, then you're not ready for that apology. Apologize when you are ready and when your actions meet your apology, when you're ready to own it. I've worked with a woman who was, without giving too much away, who worked with domestic violence survivors. And those women were the definition of a good girl. And they would forgive much more than we can imagine what would be forgiven, and go back to those men who would violate them in more ways than you could imagine. And they would forgive them for that because they would apologize and promise that they would do better. But the actions were not following the apology. And one of the hardest things that she went through was dealing with the loss of one of her clients, one of the women that she was working with, because she kept going back, as most of these women do. And it's also not just for women. Men go through the same things. She lost one of her clients because she kept going back. And I believe it was the 7th time that she went back that she did not survive that ordeal. So this is the darkest part of being a good girl and literally putting everybody else's needs and wants before your own well-being. And it's not an easy thing to overcome for them or for any one of us. it's not an easy thing. It takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of bravery to ask for a simple thing such as help. And I say it's simple because it sounds so simple, but in reality, asking for help can be and often is one of the hardest things a good girl can ever do. I myself struggled asking for help. And now I have learned to ask for help. And ask for help in a way of, in different ways, but one being, here's what I want you to do, you do it, and not me asking what I want from you, but simply stating, this is what I want your help with, and not asking in a way of, can you please help me with this? Because more often than not, that would be turned down. So I had learned to say, this is what I want you to help me with, and stating it as a fact instead of pleading. I had suffered postpartum depression and ended up going into severe depression after having lost the twins, after our daughter being born early, after my son being born early as well, because I excused a lot of things throughout my life, throughout the pregnancy, throughout the journey. And I didn't allow others to help me, even when it was offered, because I would be the superhero of, I got it, it's okay, I'm okay, I'll figure it out, it'll be okay, it'll be fine. Whereas in reality, that was not the reality. I was drowning, and I was drowning more and more and more and more and more, where I could no longer deal with it. And only when I admitted to myself that I could no longer do this on my own, and I accepted help, and then I asked for help, and then I hired help in the areas of where I was ready to do the work, that I started to see that light, and I started to see myself under all of this darkness and shadow and heaviness. And I say this to remind each and every one of you that what right now might appear as I got it all figured out and I got my shit together, and for the majority, yes, but I had been at a very, very, very rock bottom, and I did not get to this point on my own. I didn't. I couldn't do it on my own. We're not meant to do all of these things that we're doing on our own. Even the superheroes that we see on TV, they're not doing it on their own. They're doing a lot of it on their own, but they're not alone. They have help. They have support. They have people that they can go to. They have systems, they have structures that help them through it all. So I'm just reminding you that you're not alone, and to start practicing delegating and not asking for help, even though in a way it is asking for help. So I feel like a lot of it already got shared, but I'll go through a couple of things to remind you of what really happens when we dim our light. What happens when you stop shining your own light. Number one, internal struggle, which I already covered quite a bit throughout this. Internal struggle is avoidable. It is avoidable. You don't have to go at it alone. You're not meant to. Seek out the people that are the right fit for you and say yes to their invitation to help you. Internal struggle, diminished self-worth, where the fear of shining your light may lead to constant feeling of inadequacy, diminishing your sense of self-worth, where you prioritize everybody else is worthy of love and attention, worthy of help, worthy of support, worthy of this, worthy of that, but you're not. Unfulfilled potential. Suppressing your authenticity can result in unexplored talents, unexplored passions, and potential that remains untapped. I'm trying to remember who it was that I heard this from. A motivational speaker, Les Brown. Les Brown would say that the richest place on the planet is the graveyard. Because how many people that died and were buried at the graveyard, having to be buried with their unfulfilled hopes and dreams and desires that could have made and added amazing amount of contribution to this world, to this planet, but didn't, because they were too scared to shine the light on themselves. But they had no problem shining the light on everybody else. And I know you don't want that to be you. Otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video, listening to this podcast once it's on a podcast this far, this long. The second thing that happens when you stop shining your own light is emotional turmoil. You're going to experience anxiety. You're going to feel emotional drain. You're going to feel exhausted, tired. You're going to feel violated. You're going to feel used and abused. You're going to feel unheard, unaccepted, unnoticed. You're going to feel insignificant. Depression is going to be inevitable in this existence if you're not fulfilling yourself, if you're not living a life that feels fulfilling to you. Anxiety and stress hindering your true self can lead to anxiety as you navigate your fear of judgment and rejection. You might find yourself feeling rejected constantly, every single day. You might find yourself rejecting yourself, where you're just beating yourself up. I'm this, I'm that, and I am fat, I'm ugly, I am not worthy of love, I'm not good enough, where you're literally slowly beating yourself up from inside. And those are the bruises that people do not see. I got a lot of those bruises, a lot of them. And people don't see those bruises because they're on the inside. And those are the bruises that we keep to ourselves because we don't want to make anyone feel bad. We don't want to feel pity. We don't want anyone's pity. We don't want to make anyone feel like they have to make us feel better. That's why we hide all of these things from everyone, to not be a burden on anyone else. Why? Why do we feel like, you know why? Here's the reason why. It's because you have the wrong audience. We all need an audience. Each and every one of us needs an audience. Audience simply means having someone to talk to release all of these things and process it verbally, so we can hear ourselves, we can understand ourselves. We're all verbal processors. All of us have had something in our mind, and the perfect example is we've all thought of something really funny, but when we said it outwardly, it was not funny at all. And it's like, it sounded funny in my head, but when it came out, it's not funny. So in order for us to understand what is going on inside of our brain, this translator that we all have, that we need to speak it out loud to hear ourselves think, and then recognize that's insane. I wouldn't even talk to my worst enemy in this way, and yet here I am talking to myself this way. We are bullies to ourselves, so that needs to stop. And that starts with uncovering the mold that you have, that is the good girl within you, within each and every one of us. We all have a mold. Uncovering what it is, seeing it for what it is, and then readjusting it to the one that we would much rather prefer. Because that mold is not all bad. A lot of it is good. You just need to remold it in a way that is authentic to you. And I'll be mentioning later, you keep your eyes and ears open. I'm going to have a post coming out for a challenge that Anna and I are doing to help you with breaking free from this good girl mold. And it's going to be a 5-day free challenge, just planting a seed here for you guys who are on here live. And we'll start actually the challenge next week, so it's not going to be that far around the corner for you all. So emotional turmoil, emotional drain, continuously suppressing your authenticity can be emotionally draining, leading to a sense of emptiness. I believe it was Debbie who mentioned feeling empty and depressed. There. Number 3, stifled personal growth or stifled personal growth. Limited self-discovery, where you're not even focusing on yourself, you're not even thinking of growing yourself, you're not even indulging or exploring personal growth and personal development. And I see there's quite a few comments coming through. I will respond to them later after I'm done the video, but please keep them coming. Share what's coming through for you. I love going through comments and responding to them. And then also feel free to reach out to me and have a chat, one-on-one conversation. If you feel the need to share anything and you just want to even get things off your chest. My door is always open. I might not respond to you right away, but I respond when I'm fully ready and available to hear you, see you, and feel you, and then be there for you 100%. So with stifled personal growth, limited self-discovery, is authenticity is crucial. Like I said earlier, if you're struggling with identifying what your purpose is, that is what everybody's purpose is on this planet, is to discover who you are and live your truth. Live in your own light. Shine that light on yourself to be the most authentic you that you can be, and do what you feel called to do with who you truly are, who you authentically are. So authenticity is a crucial element in self-discovery and personal growth. Fear in your own light can, and often does, hinder this process. There's a lot of missed opportunities as well. A lot of missed opportunities. Because you become reluctant to be yourself, which leads you to missing opportunities to learn, missing opportunities to grow, to evolve, and opportunities to experience something new and something different. That sense of adventure might not be there anymore either. Number 4, it impacts your relationships 100%. Not only does it impact the relationship with yourself, but it affects and hinders the relationships outside. Every relationship, whether people know what you're going through or not, that energy speaks louder than words, and people will feel off that vibe that you carry. Surface level connections. That's what tends to happen as well. When you hide your true self, relationship may remain on the surface level, which will cause you to not have these deep, intimate, genuine connections with people in your life, where you can find your soul family. And there's nothing like finding your soul family. You're not stuck with the family you're born in. You have the opportunity to connect with your soul family that is not limited to where you live, but is all across the globe. And you get to choose who is part of the soul family. Fear of rejection, where you also become scared of rejection. Your intimate relationships can suffer with this one as well. When you have a negative self-image of yourself, how likely are you to make a move? How likely are you to open up and be vulnerable? How likely are you to feel comfortable being intimate in your relationship? Not very likely. So that starts to suffer as well. Loss of joy and passion, where your joy, your happiness is suppressed, and you're no longer able to express yourself authentically, which results not even having enthusiasm or happiness or that zest for life that you once had. And the last thing I want to mention is contribution to a limited world. Reduce diversity. Each person's authenticity adds diversity to the world. That's why I was talking about the graveyard. How a lot of those people who did not allow to add themselves and express themselves in this world in the way that they wanted to have moved on to the next stage of their soul life, soul existence, and did not add to the world in the way that they wished. Fear of shining your light contributes to a world with limited perspectives and experiences. You have so much to offer and add to the world. Please don't let it die with you. We don't know how long we have on this planet. None of us do. And if we do live our life with the end in mind, it adds fire to our life, because now it's not that we're focusing on the end, it's that we are focusing on the journey itself. We're focusing on what we're going to be doing today, how we're going to live our life today in the way that we want to live our life, in the way that feels right and authentic, and it brings fire and joy to my day today. Tomorrow comes, how am I going to live my best life today that I feel amazing and great today? It might be the same or might be different from the day before. And then the next day, how am I going to do this today? And then the next day, how am I going to do this today? How am I going to live my most authentic self and express that today? How am I going to shine my light as brightly as I can today and not allow anybody else to dim it? Because everybody else, when people notice that you shine your light, it makes them feel uncomfortable because they too want to do that, but they are scared, or they don't know how to, or they're not ready. And by you doing so, it will make other people feel uncomfortable, and they will try to help you, quote unquote. But in doing so, their help is really they're helping themselves by bringing you down, by making you feel smaller, by grounding you, as they'll try to say, by forcing you to have a reality check that you didn't even ask for, so they can feel better. Because they're reminding you of the realities, brought you down from cloud 9, cloud 10, so they can feel better. And that means that they don't have to do anything to change their life. They can continue living their own life in the way that they have been. So I feel, I shared one of the 33 principles from the unconventional wisdom that we got from IPEC coach training. This is a graduation present that each and every graduate got from the coach training from IPEC. And I love this little Bible, as I call it. I will admit that I don't go into it as often as I used to, because I feel like at this point I have been living by these principles, because they're so instilled in my everyday life, into my everyday existence, that is just who I am and not who I'm trying to be. And shining my light as brightly as I can, and especially on the days where I catch myself wanting to dim my light, because there's still days where I catch myself in that old mold of being the good girl that don't shine, don't do this, don't do that. And when I hear those messages to me, I ask, why not? Why not? And the answers are just entertaining, to be to be quite honest, because sometimes it just doesn't even make any sense, because, well, why not? Well, it's a good question. I don't know. No reason at all. Just because that's the typical message that has been passed down generation after generation after generation, and has been instilled in me through my life, through the things that I watched growing up as well, including Disney. Yeah. Anyways, I'm no damsel in distress. And yet, it's okay to be one, to make the other person in a relationship feel needed and wanted, but not in a phony way, in an authentic way. Anyway, so thank you, everybody, for being on here with me. I got to go and pick up my daughter. She finished her last exam today. She's gonna have the next 3 days off at home with me, so I'll keep her busy as well for her own, in her own ways as well. So thank you for being on here with me. What else? Tomorrow we have the Heal the Unicorn podcast, which is going to be live streamed into our Facebook group, Heal the Unicorn, Emotional Healing and Spiritual Growth for Women, since we changed the name of the group a little bit to really make it very clear what the group is about and who it's for, just through the title itself. So I hope to see you there at 1:30 Eastern time, live in the group. Other than that, we'll see each other next Tuesday at 11:30-ish for another story time with myself, Yana Kasperczak, your spiritual awakening core energy coach, who is here for you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, live, helping you to get your shit together so you can break free from that mental prison that you find yourself in and live the life that you are proud of and are excited to wake up to every single day. And until next time, bye everybody.